It feels boring. It feels like missing out. But this is exactly where the gap between the wealthy and everyone else starts to open. Now here's where things get interesting, because once that gap opens, something else takes over, and it's the closest thing finance has to actual magic. It's called compounding, and almost nobody respects how strange it really is. There's an old story, maybe true, maybe not, about a king who was asked by an inventor for a reward. Just place 1 grain of rice on the first square of a chessboard, then double it on every square after. The king laughed and agreed, thinking it was a modest request. By the 64th square, the rice required was greater than anything the kingdom had ever produced. That's compounding. It looks like nothing for the first 10 squares. Then it becomes unstoppable. Money behaves exactly the same way. The first few years of investing look almost pointless. The growth is so small you can barely see it on a chart. People quit right there, convinced it isn't working. But the people who stay, who keep adding small amounts year after year, eventually hit the steep part of the curve, where the money starts making more money than they ever could by working harder. The tragedy is that most people give up exactly 1 or 2 years before that curve gets interesting. But staying in the game requires surviving the moments when everything wants to pull you out. And that brings us to the third habit, the one almost nobody talks about: protecting the downside before chasing the upside. Ask a struggling investor what attracted them to an opportunity, and they'll tell you about the potential gains. Ask a wealthy investor the same question, and the first thing out of their mouth is usually about the risk, what could go wrong, how much they could lose. This isn't pessimism, it's math. If you lose 50% of your money, you don't need a 50% gain to recover. You need a 100% gain, just to get back to where you started. That asymmetry is brutal, and once you truly understand it, chasing quick, flashy opportunities starts to feel a lot less exciting and a lot more like walking toward a cliff in the fog. And this connects to something almost philosophical about how quietly wealthy people see debt itself. Most people think of all debt as bad, or all debt as fine, depending on their mood. But there's a sharper way to see it. Some debt buys things that lose value the moment you drive them off the lot or swipe the card. Other debt buys things that pay you back year after year, like a small rental property or a piece of a growing business. The wealthy aren't allergic to borrowing money. They're allergic to borrowing money for things that disappear. So if you put all of this together, the tub that doesn't leak, the lifestyle that stays flat while income climbs, the patience to sit through the boring middle of the compounding curve, the obsession with protecting the downside, and the sharp eye for debt that builds instead of drains, you start to see that wealth was never really about a secret stock tip or a lucky break. It was a quiet, almost invisible set of habits, repeated long after it stopped feeling exciting. The good news is that none of these habits require a special starting point. They just require starting. And the only real question left is whether you'll still be checking your bank balance with one eye closed 5 years from now, or whether you'll be the one who quietly stopped.